The meeting to order. Today is Thursday, July 10th, 2025, and this is a meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission for the City of West Hollywood. We would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather, currently known as the City of West Hollywood, is the occupied, unceded, seized territory of the Gabrielino Tongva and Gabrielino Kizh peoples. Commissioner Topshin, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure, thank you. Please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Ms. Orton, may we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Copeland?
Present.
Commissioner Goldman?
Here.
Commissioner Krupes?
Here.
Commissioner McCafferty?
Here.
Commissioner Topshin?
Here.
Vice Chair Rory?
Here.
Chair Bass?
Here. We have a quorum. Has everyone had the chance to review tonight's agenda? And if so, do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Orton, may we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Copeland?
Aye.
Commissioner Goldman?
Aye.
Commissioner Krupes?
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory?
Aye.
Chair Bass?
Aye. That motion passes. Now we have the minutes for the meeting of June 26, 2025. Has everyone had a chance to review them? Are there any changes? Okay.
Move to approve.
We have a motion and a second. May we please have a roll call?
Commissioner Copeland?
Aye.
Commissioner Goldman?
Aye.
Commissioner Krupes?
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory?
Aye.
Chair Bass?
Aye. And that motion passes. Now we'll move on to item number 6 on our agenda, which is public comment. Do we have any speakers from the public at this time?
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. If somebody does choose to speak to this commission, they'll have an opportunity again at the end of the meeting. We'll now turn to item number 7, Manager's Report. Ms. Aviles, do we have a report? May we please have the report?
Good evening, Commissioners. For tonight's meeting, we will be hearing 2 appeals. As new business, there will be the reorganization of the chair and vice chair, the appointment of commission liaisons to other commissions and advisory boards, and the formation of an ad hoc subcommittee to review the evaluation guidelines. At our July 24th meeting, there will be 2 appeals, and then for our August meeting, there will be 2 appeals, and as new business, the valuation guideline increase and conversations regarding the security deposit interest. That's it.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for the manager at this time? Seeing none, we will move along now to the appeals portion of our meeting. We have 2 appeals this evening, and so the way this process works is the person appealing, whether it be the tenant or the landlord, will have 5 minutes to speak. They can divide that time but equally, divide that time however they'd like. They just tell us that at the beginning of their testimony, and then we will hear the respondent, and then they will have their rebuttal time. But before we do any of that, we do turn to our staff to provide us with a staff report. So we will start and ask Mr. Martz if he has a report on our first appeal for this evening.
I don't have a report. I'm just kidding. You've never asked it that way, so. All right, good evening, Commission. Kellen Martz, Legal Counsel of the Rent Stabilization Commission. As the chair noted, this is D-4889CD1. The property address is 8220 West Norton Avenue, apartment number 15. This appeal was filed by the tenant in this matter. This appeal stems from a compliance determination decision from an original decision issued in July of 2024. In that case, the tenant, John Lown, has requested a rent reduction for multiple housing service and maintenance issues. Relevant tonight is only one of those issues, and that is large cracks and holes in the parking area. The original decision granted a $24 rent reduction for that issue. The property owner is 8220 Norton via B LP. They filed for a compliance determination, and that decision on the compliance issues was issued on May 23rd, 2025. And in this matter, staff is recommending a remand. Relevant here is the compliance determination. The landlord filed the compliance determination, and the tenant filed an objection with the city, including on the issue before you tonight, A hearing was held, both parties attended that hearing, and the decision was issued in May of 2025. The compliance determination decision found that the evidence presented was sufficient to show that the landlord had complied with the original decision as to the large holes and cracks in the parking area. The tenant has appealed, arguing that the hearing examiner was in error and that the compliance determination decision was not supported by the evidence in the record. And what the tenant specifically states is that the compliance determination evidence submitted by the landlord only showed repairs to one hole in the garage, while he had testified that there were multiple issues in the garage and that the original decision related to multiple issues, not just one. The tenant argued that he provided multiple photos to show that those cracks and holes remained, and that contradicted the findings by the compliance determination decision. And so the question before you tonight is there substantial evidence in the record to reasonably support the hearing examiner's compliance determination decision regarding the holes and cracks in the parking area? And here, staff believes that there is not that sufficient evidence to support it and believes that a remand is appropriate here. To start, Rent Stabilization Regulation 60044 and the instructions provided on the compliance determination form require that the landlord provide either receipts or invoices for the work performed. If those aren't available, they may provide a statement from the landlord or the landlord's employee describing what work was performed and the date of that work. And then if neither of those are available, they can provide a written statement explaining why those items are not available. In this matter, the landlord submitted those documents and invoices for the other compliance determination issues, but not for the cracks and holes in the parking area. From our review, it appeared that there was only one photo provided and no explanation or invoices as to the work done. However, the hearing examiner did review the request and heard testimony and then made the determination that there was sufficient evidence to return the rents on that matter. There was a peculiar part where the hearing examiner said that because there were no recent rains, it was not possible to determine if the work was insufficient to bring the property into compliance. Staff believes that that shifts the burden on proving the matter to the tenant as opposed to the landlord, who has the actual burden to show that they've completed the work. And in the decision, there was not any review of or discussion about the multiple photos provided by the tenant in his objection and at the hearing. Based on that, staff believes that these inconsistencies and open questions necessitate a remand to the hearing examiner to review the record and provide a more thorough and complete decision. And that concludes my report that doesn't exist.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This is what happens when I go off script. I ask things differently. But we got to the same place, so that's fine. At this point, before we turn to the appellant, I want to ask if any of my colleagues have questions of legal counsel. Okay. We will now turn then to Mr. Lone. You appealed this, so you will speak first. You will have 5 minutes to provide your oral argument. You have the option of dividing that time like I mentioned, and you may use part of your 5 minutes to state your case, and then 5 minutes, the rest of that for rebuttal. So if you would like to approach, begin by stating your name, city of residence, and then tell us how you would like to divide the time so the secretary can keep that time appropriately.
Hey, good evening. My name is John Lown. My address of residence is 8220 Norton Avenue, and here in West Hollywood, California. Not much to divide my time on because it's really just one issue. So I'll just kind of make a brief statement. I'm not going to rehash all the points of the staff report because it's explanatory. And quite honestly, I agree with the decision of the staff summary and also the proposed resolution. So instead, I'm just going to kind of flesh out a little bit of, kind of give a little bit of color to the report, not introducing any new evidence, but just kind of saying more what something is. The holes and cracks in question are in the parking garage that are I say parking that's underneath the building. The building is roughly 65 years old, so nearing 70. And even though there haven't been any rains, the photos I did provide at the hearing were taken during the last rain of the season on February 13th, I believe it was. Weren't that many, so it won't be hard to figure that out. And kind of like to kind of the part I'd like to flesh out, just saying holes and cracks isn't saying much. The garage, it's about 20 spaces, which is roughly, I'm guessing by eyeballs, about 6,800 square feet. And of that, the repair done was the landlord seemed to focus only on my parking spot, even though it's a community area issue for something I'll get to in a moment. The hole that they patched, about 18 by 18 inches, so that's 3 square feet out of 20 car garage. And they also patched around 3 pipes that came down, so about a 3-inch area around that. But then they missed another area of 4 pipes coming down, which is still a mishmash of spray foam that expands, a couple like little wooden strips, and concrete chunks that are kind of caught in that mess. The cracks are really what I focus on. Like I said, it's an older building. The cracks, it's tough to judge the size of things in the photos I presented because I don't have a tape measure on the ceiling, but they range anywhere from like 3 feet to 10 feet long. And they're not in one area, it's a network of them throughout about roughly a third to 2/3 of the parking garage. And my concern is that these cracks collectively, even in the light rain that we had back in February, were enough to form the puddles that are in the photos I presented, that they're like 25 feet across. And that's a lot of water going through structural concrete because, I'm sure somebody in here is in construction somewhere. Nobody uses concrete because it's cheap. I mean, it is the structural basis of a building. This is an old building, lots of cracks. I mean, the water doesn't pour down, it gets multiple cars wet, but it's really about, my concern is it may take more than a handyman with a pint of spackle to fix. And that's why I'm taking up your time in this really nice venue for a $24 per tenant thing. And that's my position.
Thank you very much. Ms. Thornton, how much time does he have left?
2 minutes and 9 seconds.
So should you choose to take that for rebuttal, you will have that opportunity
Okay.
when that gets there. But before you step down, I want to ask if many of my colleagues have questions for you. I'm seeing none. So you are done for this
Okay.
at this
All right.
moment.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now turn to now we will ask if there's any public comment on this hearing.
Not at this time.
Okay. Now we will turn to the landlord, Mr. Monroe. I believe he's with us on Zoom. Hello. Again, please state your name, city of residence, and you are not able to divide your time, so you have up to 5 minutes at this point to address us on this appeal. Please.
Okay, very good. My name is Austin Monroe. I live in Los Angeles, California. And what else was I supposed to provide?
You can just proceed at this time.
Okay. Yes. So we did have repairs done in the garage. I was able to send over the invoice for those services. So that would have been on April 11th, 2025. There were multiple areas that were touched up by our vendor. And yeah, I mean, that's our position. We complied with what was being requested of us. And that's really our only position.
Thank you very much. Let me see if any of my colleagues have questions for you at this time. Our vice chair does. Please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Monroe. Were you able to hear the tenants' comments before you spoke?
Yes.
And did you understand the tenants' comments about, at the hearing, there was evidence about only a particular area of the garage being repaired and not the extensive area of the garage being repaired? Did you hear that part of his testimony?
I did.
And what's your response to that particular part?
I don't have a response to that part in particular. I don't know that we were, asked to resurface the entire garage. So no response.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Monroe,
Can I?
Commissioner
Chair,
Thompson.
it's just good evening, Ms. Monroe.
Good evening.
You said that the vendor touched up some of the areas, not the entire ceiling. Clearly, did you instruct your vendor to repair certain areas, or you just trusted the vendor to go there and to decide what to do? And
we requested the required compliance outcomes from the city hearing.
right, but you didn't identify certain areas in the garage ceiling that had to be repaired. So
We identified the areas that were brought up during the initial hearing.
And were these areas identified at the hearing somewhere in writing, in some way?
In the initial case, D-4889.
Because the decision of the hearing examiner, it says the landlord shall repair the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling. It doesn't really identify which one, so I want to know how you or your vendor chose to repair certain areas, but not the entire ceiling. So I wonder if there was any specification, any direction, which specific areas that need to be repaired. But it seems like I don't see it, at least in the decision of the hearing examiner. It just says the landlord shall repair the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling. All right, that's it, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Seeing none, we thank you for your time, Mr. Monroe, and our secretary is going to mute you again, but you will stay in the meeting. And Mr. Lone, you have the opportunity for rebuttal at this point in time.
Just one quick item, since this goes back as mentioned, or as you've gotten documents that started like over a year ago. In the original time I testified in front of the hearing examiner, I provided extensive photos of the previous year's rainstorm when we actually had some rain, and I submitted, so if he was working off those were more extensive because it was actually raining, and I, per the instructions of what I could submit to the hearing examiner, said some things, videos could be provided or submitted if that was the only way you could see something. So I also submitted rain actively showing all the drops falling, the streams falling from all the different cracks. So Mr. Monroe, it was aware from photos and video of not just over my car, it was of all of everything else. So that's my only rebuttal.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we have heard all of the public testimony, and we will close the public hearing portion, and I will turn to my colleagues to see if there are any questions in advance of any deliberation. I have one, and that is if staff can help us understand why they are recommending a remand as opposed to a reversal, and kind of that thinking.
Remand and reversal are close cousins, and so it can often go either way. When something is missed, often a remand is more appropriate, and so here there were photos provided and video and whatnot, and it just seems like the landlord didn't, or excuse me, the hearing examiner didn't address those, and so that's where the remand comes from. This is one that was a little bit closer than some of the other ones, but where there's an opportunity where things need to be reviewed in more detail. A lot of times it's like MAR and going through bank statements, but I think here staff's recommendation is that is the same thing, is there's photos that need to be gone through, there needs to be an opportunity for the parties to address those things in more detail than I think is before you tonight, and so that's why a remand was suggested.
Thank you. I appreciate you walking us through your thinking.
Sure
on that.
thing.
Any additional questions? Then who would like to begin deliberation? Oh, did you have one, Commissioner Goldman?
So I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. In the staff report, it said that there was no invoice, and I didn't see one in here, but the landlord said that they submitted one, so I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss it in there.
You are correct. There was additional information submitted last week, but that would be new evidence. And so what you have in the packet, we've confirmed is the full evidence from the landlord, either submitted with a compliance determination request or at the hearing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Len, who would like to begin deliberations on this? Commissioner McCafferty.
This is so nitpicky, but that's what we're here for. So to me, a remand seems appropriate because I see that the decision was repair large holes in ceiling of parking area, remediate multiple cracks. How many large holes, what large holes, how many cracks? It is vague. I get it if you get down to it. So I would agree with remanding, and then I would recommend that staff be super specific, either say, you know, recover the entire ceiling, or get really specific, this hole, this crack, this many, and just get down into it, because it seems like there is some confusion with what is being asked of the landlord and what is acceptable by this. So yeah, that's where I stand.
Thank you. Whoever would like to go next, yes.
Start on this side. For me, the fact that the tenant wants the remand, wants the remand as opposed to anything else is important, and that the staff is recommending the remand as opposed to anything else, that drives my thinking on remand versus reversal. And the whole issue, I think, seems to be the landlord thinking that there were just a few specific holes to be repaired versus more extensive rain precipitation. And so I think on the remand, I'm assuming the hearing examiner gets the benefit of listening to this hearing and all the direction the staff provides. But it seems like the issue is really when it rains, that amount of water. And having some experience in this area, it is hard to recreate the effects of rain and to know whether you've done something correctly or not. And it's kind of challenging, but clearly there's an issue that needs to be addressed. So I would focus the hearing examiner on the remand on really the extensive damage, that looking at the evidence of the extensive damage when it rains, and that being the basis for like a future rent reduction if the hearing examiner agrees on remand.
Thank you, Commissioner Topchin.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I agree with the fellow commissioners before me. The remand will be appropriate here. And I absolutely agree with staff's explanation that the examiner's statement that the lack of recent rains make it impossible to determine if the repairs were insufficient. I don't believe that's appropriate justification for not giving the rent reduction, or for granting the compliance request for compliance determination. Thank you, Vice Chair. So I think remand is appropriate, and because there is clearly there is a record in the pictures. They show that the large areas, significant areas that are not being touched, they're not being repaired. So therefore, I would support staff's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Copeland, while we're on this side.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. I agree with staff's recommendation to remand the item back to the hearing examiner for a more thorough examination of all of the evidence and a more detailed determination report, because the lack of specificity from the hearing examiner regarding the evidence that the examiner stated was provided by the landlord and which was required to be credible supporting evidence. So it seems insufficient to be credible supporting evidence with that one area or photograph. And also the lack, as staff mentioned, of addressing the abundance of photographic evidence that was presented by the tenant that gives the appearance that perhaps there was potential errors in reviewing the evidence before the decision. And as far as the part about there were no recent rains, it wasn't possible to determine if the work was sufficient to bring the property into compliance. To me, if anything, that confirms that there wasn't sufficient evidence by the landlord, who had the burden of proof to warrant a compliance determination and restoration of the rent reduction. So I'm on board with staff's recommendation on this one for remand. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kerpes.
Yes, I'll agree with what my colleagues have already said. To me, it's pretty clear that the landlord, the hearing examiner didn't really weigh and determine whether the landlord shall repair the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling that are not for pipe access and ensure no water is leaking in the parking area. And with, as mentioned before, all the pictures that were shown and the evidence that was shown that of the other holes, and with no reference or comments about them, for us to understand why those were not, why those were either evaluated and determined not to prove that it was sufficient, or whether the hearing examiner just missed them. I'm not sure, but either way, it needs to be remanded.
Thank you, Commissioner Goldman.
I agree with my colleagues and staff recommendation as well to remand, and I don't think I have to repeat for all of the reasons that everybody else stated.
Thank you, and it will be a unanimous vote, and I will not repeat what they've said. I will say only that when we remand and the hearing is reopened, that there's an opportunity for additional evidence, and so the hearing examiner will obviously be looking at the stuff that's already been submitted. But Mr. Monroe, if you have that invoice that you mentioned that is not in the record from the original hearing, that'll be an opportunity for the hearing examiner to look at all of the evidence as well. Not just the tenant's photos, but the invoice that you mentioned, which is not before us because it was not before the original hearing. So with that, I would ask if there is a motion at this time.
Chair, before you do that, may I make one recommendation? I heard one suggestion from Commissioner McCafferty, but I think it flowed through most of your comments, is the resolution. Sometimes in our draft resolutions, we recommend what the hearing examiner shall do. If you don't mind, I want to read the two that we have there and then suggest a third.
Please.
All right. So on remand, the hearing examiner shall determine through appropriate procedures as they find necessary whether the parking garage cracks and holes were repaired in accordance with the requirements of the original decision. 2, fully review the photos and other evidence and clearly explain their findings in more detail than found in the May 23rd, 2025 compliance determination decision. That is in the draft now. The third that I recommend adding, but it is entirely up to the commission, is the hearing examiner shall review the original decision and provide additional clarity to the parties on the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling, including the specific areas and number of holes and cracks if possible. This recommendation applies regardless of whether the hearing examiner finds that the landlord was in substantial compliance or not. It's an additional clarity.
There is a draft resolution before us, a recommendation to amend that draft resolution, and I'm interested in a motion. Please, Commissioner Copeland. Yeah,
Ready?
please, please.
Yes. With the changes named by staff, of course, I would move that we adopt resolution RSC 25-688, a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, remanding the hearing examiner's decision as to application number D-4889-CD1.
Thank you. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
And there is a second. So the motion before us is to approve the draft resolution presented by staff with the amendment read into the record by our legal counsel a few minutes ago.
Can I get clarification on
Please.
what the amendment is? Can you explain that last requirement again, please?
Yes, the number 3, the recommendation. The hearing examiner should review the original decision and provide additional clarity to the parties on the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling, including specific areas and number of holes and cracks, if possible. This recommendation implies regardless of whether the hearing examiner finds the landlord was in substantial compliance or not. So the intent there is not just to say, yes, you were in compliance or no, you were not, and then the second part of that is this applies regardless of whether they again find him in compliance or not. And so if they find either way, the recommendation or the instruction is you should have repaired 10 cracks. I see you only did 1. So that if they find them still out of compliance, they have a barometer to measure what work they need to do. Because as we've pointed out, it is a little bit difficult to just say repair these holes. And as noted, this is a 6,000 square foot space. And then I just want to point out, it's a little difficult because the hearing examiner on the compliance portion is limited by what the original hearing examiner wrote. And they wrote, fix the holes and in the cracks in the garage, except as if they're for pipes or something to that effect. So the hearing examiner on the compliance determination is also in the same problem we are of trying to ascertain what do we need to fix. So if they're going through these photos, I'm saying if you have the ability to count the cracks or say, yes, it's above spot 1, 3, 9, and 12, it's going to help all the parties know how you come into compliance in the future.
Thank you very much for that explanation. I will note right now, Mr. Monroe, we do see your hand raised in Zoom, but we've closed the public hearing, so there is no opportunity to address this at this time. Though you can address this particular appeal if you have something about the rent stabilization you want to talk to us about, you can do that at the end of the meeting when we have public comment. Mr. Martz, you gave the example as if the hearing examiner who makes this compliance determination says, you need to fix 10, I think the numbers you used were 10 cracks. I know they're hypothetical, so I'll preface it with that. There are 10 cracks and you've only repaired 2 of them. It could go the same way too for the tenant in that they say there were 10 cracks and you've repaired all 10. And that would give the opportunity to the tenant if they wanted to file for a future hearing and say there is an additional problem that was not addressed by this compliance determination, that would allow all parties to have more clarity going forward. Is that how I'm understanding it?
That would be correct, yes.
Okay. Again, we're throwing out hypotheticals to try to understand how this would go into effect, so I appreciate you walking us down that road.
Sure thing.
See, and I kind of, and if I may be interpreting it wrong, but I kind of see that is complicating the issue more and actually making the new hearing examiner, the one that is just there to determine whether the compliance has been met, to reinterpret and actually set a new set whatever interpretation they want. I mean, they're not just giving reasoning for their own logic of why they decide whether it's in compliance or not. They're actually creating another standard that doesn't exist. It should be our decision, if it's appealed, to determine whether the evidence was there and a reasonable person believed, all the things that we're told every single hearing. This actually lets the hearing examiner define this for us. I mean, if I wanted to define this, I could define this, but we're not doing that. We're just saying they didn't give the reason why they said they're in compliance with this landlord shall repair the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling that are not for pipe purposes and ensure no water is leaking in the parking area. It should be the tenant and the landlord figuring out if they're in compliance or not. I think we're putting a new standard on the hearing examiner, but I could be interpreting it wrong.
Commissioner Copeland.
To me, the way I took it when staff read it was that it would add some specificity and clarity that might make it a little bit actually easier to make the determination, because if you say repair the crack, okay, well, we repaired a crack, as opposed to saying there are cracks in the southeast end, the northeast end, and whatever, these need to be repaired. It seems like it might make it a little bit easier to have that specificity and that clarity in the record, because it's right now there's no real clarity in the determination, but I don't know how the rest of you feel. I'm certainly open to.
If I may. Oh, go ahead.
I want to see Commissioner Thompson.
Mr. Martz, what's the size of the garage?
The tenant testified it was 6,500 square feet approximately.
That's enormous, I think. And if we don't provide that clarification, or kind of clarification for the examiner, what would be the examiner would have the same questions. So what should I do? Should I require the landlord to repair the entire 6,000 plus square foot ceiling? Or I think this reasonably explains what the examiner needs to do, because the examiner, just like us, would have the question, so which areas? So there are a number of pictures, photographic evidence, but which ones I have to require the landlord to repair? I think I see the benefit of what the legal counsel is suggesting here by adding that recommendation.
So if the intent is for the hearing examiner to clarify their decision, I'm for it. But if it's to create a new standard and change what's in here right now, then I'm against it. But we should, the hearing examiner can do all of that in their reasoning. But I don't want to tell them to figure out how many number of holes there are. 6 of them are repaired of the 10, so that is the standard that you're saying is needs to be met, because that's not the standard that needs to be met. That's where we come in if there's an appeal over it. The hearing examiner here the job is to determine whether they're significantly or substantially in compliance. They can say, I think they're substantially in compliance because they've covered 6 of the 10 holes, but it's not their job to say, you will be in compliance when you fill the other 4 holes or when you fill the 6th hole of the 7. Like, that's not their job. Their job is to determine whether the facts in front of them, they substantially comply or they don't. And that's my only concern. Like, they should definitely use all their description in their own reasoning for why they came to their conclusion, but I don't want to usurp the conclusion portion.
Chair, if I may clarify something. That could be their job, because they are, and the problem we're seeing here is they didn't tell us why or they told us why, but they didn't explain clearly why the landlord was in compliance here, and that's why we're struggling here. The original decision said fix all these holes and cracks. A compliance determination decision absolutely can say, I find you have not complied because I've been provided with photos showing 20 cracks and you only did 2. So they have to have a metric, or they should have a metric to show whether there was compliance or not. And that's all I'm suggesting in this, is that they need to explain their decision either way. And I think by going through the photos and giving some metric, not recreating the original decision or going beyond, or they have to stay within the confines, fix all of the cracks and holes. So if there's a new one that just came up after the original decision, that certainly needs to be excluded, and if they included that, that would be an expansion inappropriate. But trying to create a metric is the goal of this language, and it does give them an out. It says, if any. If they say that's a dumb idea, legal counsel was dumb to say that, they can certainly do that, but it's just trying to guide them into giving us a little more than the less that they gave us this time.
Let's hope that they do not say legal counsel is dumb for saying that, because that wouldn't be very appropriate.
I will take the blame, even though you're voting on it. So.
Commissioner, Vice Chair Rory and I looked at each other. I think we were about to say something similar, but I wanted to ask specifically, that's appealable as well. Whatever they say, fix these numbers of cracks, the tenant could come to us and say they didn't count enough. The landlord could come and say they counted too many. That would be part of an appealable, whatever number they come to. But at least I think that I support the addition, because I think it would give us more insight as to why they thought it was in compliance by giving us numbers of what they were trying to determine compliance by. And still, we would be able to review that at a future time should either one of the parties determine that they didn't think it was an appropriate number. That's where I'm at. Commissioner McCafferty, I see you reaching for your button.
Is there room in the language, like let's say the hearing examiner's like, I don't want to say how many numbers, but I have this other metric. Like, is there room for them to like pick something? Like, I don't want to hold them to like counting.
You were reading my mind,
Okay.
because I was, since you asked, I can provide some additional language.
Thank you.
My recommendation would be to leave it as is, including specific areas and number of holes or cracks if possible, and then add, in the event the hearing examiner determines that it is not feasible to do that, please provide another metric by which the parties can determine compliance.
There's already a motion and a second. Would that additional amendment from our legal counsel satisfy the motion maker and second?
Yes, Chair, it would.
Yes, Chair.
Okay, so the motion is still before us, but with an amendment just added by legal counsel. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, since you said that out loud, I would ask you to repeat it one more time. I'm sorry you've done it a few times, but I want to make sure we're all on the same page.
30 seconds.
Yeah, no, there's no rush there. We want to make sure we get this right.
All right, so the recommended sub C is the hearing examiner shall review the original decision and provide additional clarity to the parties on the holes and cracks in the garage ceiling, including specific areas and numbers of holes and cracks if possible. In the event the hearing examiner determines that providing the number of holes and cracks is not feasible, he or she shall provide another metric by which the parties may determine and understand compliance.
Thank you. Any additional debate on this motion before I ask for a roll call? Okay, then Ms. Thornton, may we please have a roll call on this motion?
Commissioner Copeland,
Aye.
Commissioner Goldman,
Aye.
Commissioner Kruppies,
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty,
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory,
Aye.
Chair Bass.
Aye. That motion passes. If the parties have any further questions, you may reach the Rent Stabilization Division at 323-848-6450, by email at rsd@weho.org, or you may request an in-person appointment online at weho.org under the Services menu. This is the point of the meeting where I ask if my colleagues need a break or if we should go through to the next appeal. You do? Okay. We will take a 5-minute break at this time. I'm going to call the meeting back to order at this time. We'll move on to our second appeal for this evening. This is Appeal D4375 CD1 from 1233 North Orange Grove, and the process will be the same as it was for the last appeal. And this time I'll ask the question correctly. Mr. Martz, may we have a staff report?
You may, Chair. Again, my name is Kellen Martz, Legal Counsel of the Rent Stabilization Commission. As the chair noted, the appeal is D-4375CD1, the property address 1233 North Orange Grove Avenue, apartment number 6. In this case, the tenant has filed the appeal. The tenant is, and if I mispronounce, I do apologize, Selena Regda Garbier, and the property owner is TVW Grove LLC. The appeal tonight is another compliance determination decision relating to a previous decision issued on January 2nd, 2019. The tenant requested a rent reduction regarding her unit's air conditioner. The original decision granted a $44 rent reduction for the air conditioner issue. The landlord filed a compliance determination. That decision was issued on June 12, 2025. Tonight, staff is recommending a reversal of the hearing examiner's decision. Again, the matter before you is regarding the unit's air conditioner. The landlord filed the compliance determination in May of 2025. The tenant did not file an objection with the city by the deadline. Therefore, the compliance determination decision was issued, finding that the evidence was sufficient to show that the landlord had complied with the original decision. The tenant appeals, stating that the examiner erred and that the decision was not reasonably supported by the findings or evidence in the record. The tenant argues also that the decision is contrary to specific provisions of the Rent Stabilization Ordinance or state law. The nitty-gritty is that the tenant states that the air conditioner was never replaced, provided a photo showing an empty space where the air conditioner used to sit. The tenant stated that there was air conditioning work done in another unit, and therefore the landlord may have been confused about where the actual work was done. So the question before you is there substantial evidence in the record to reasonably support the hearing examiner's compliance determination decision regarding the air conditioner? And staff believes that the answer to that question is no. And then, just like in the last case, Rent Stabilization Regulation 60044 and the instructions on the compliance determination request form state that the landlord must provide receipts or invoices to show the work performed, or a statement from the landlord or their employee describing what work was done. If those items aren't available, the landlord must still submit a statement explaining the work and why the documentation is unavailable. In this matter, the landlord submitted minimum evidence to show that the compliance determination should be granted. No invoices, receipts, or statements about the work were given. The only information provided was that the ownership changed hands in 2019, that the rent reduction was associated with the previous owner, and that the tenant has working air conditioner in her unit. Staff believes that this is insufficient to grant the return of the rent to the previous amount. The landlord didn't explain the work that was performed, give us any invoices, show any photos or dates, and to note, if the work was done by the prior owner, the landlord is still required to explain that. And as we know, the change of ownership doesn't negate the rent reduction in place. I want to note it's not the reason for the reversal, and I think it is in your packet, that the tenant has stated that the reason she did not object is that she didn't get the notice, or it came very late past the deadline. It's neither here nor there, because even if she had provided a response, the staff report would still substantially be the same, that this needs a reversal. So in conclusion, staff believes that the commission should reverse the hearing examiner's compliance determination, find that there was not substantial evidence in the record, and the result of that would be that the $44 rent reduction would remain in place, and the landlord may file a new compliance determination in the future if they wish. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Kirpies.
Just on the issue of her not attending the hearing, but she did appeal in a timely fashion, though, right?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions to staff at this time? Then, Selena, forgive me, I don't want to massacre your last name, so I'm going to call you just by your first name and ask you to tell us how to say your last name, please.
You got it. My name is Selena Garbia.
Garbia.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right.
Thank you very much. That's better
Of
than
course.
that's not what I would have said. So you probably heard the instructions a few minutes ago, but I'm going to repeat them in that you have 5 minutes. You are allowed to divide that if you would like. I would just ask you to tell us how you would like to divide that so the secretary can keep the right amount of time for you. But you just introduce yourself again, and then you your name, city of residence, and then you can begin.
Absolutely. I will divide it in half, like 2 minutes and a half, 2 minutes and a half at the end. My name is Selena Garbia. I live at 1233 North Orange Grove Avenue, apartment 6, West Hollywood, California, 90046.
Please proceed.
So whatever you read, it was all correct. I appealed it, and after I appealed it, I submitted the appeal. Of course, I sent a copy to the landlord. So they contact me after, and they said like, if you don't have AC, we can install it, and we work together. And by July 4, 5, 6, the maintenance guy came and we installed it, or the landlord installed it. And that's after the appeal. I submitted the appeal.
Thank you. Do you have anything additional?
No,
Okay.
no.
Thank you very much, and I'll ask Ms.
I can provide proofs that it was installed in July. It was like 2-3 days of work, July 4th, 5th, 6th, kind of. If you need an evidence of that, I can submit it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
How much time does she have left?
3 minutes and 56 seconds.
So should you choose to rebut, you'll have 3 minutes and 56 seconds to do that. Thank you very much.
I can use it at the end if needed.
Thank you. Do any of my colleagues have questions at this time? Seeing none, I will ask our secretary if we have any members of the public wishing to speak to this appeal.
Not at this time.
Thank you very much. Now we will turn to the landlord, in this case, Mr. Davis, and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Please begin with your name and city of residence, and then you can start speaking.
Yes, my name is Zach Davis. I am on behalf of the landlord. I reside in Arcadia, California. Everything you've stated is correct. We have since replaced the AC, but we do agree with your determination that we should just refile at a later time. I don't really have anything else to say.
Thank you. Any questions from my colleagues? Seeing Vice Chair Rory.
Just for the landlord's sake, you understand that there's a process for a landlord to file to say that they fulfilled a housing service. It's called a compliance determination. Are you familiar with that process?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure you know. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, we will turn back to Mrs. Garbia. Do you have any rebuttal at this time? We're unmuting you.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yes, we do now.
No, just basically like whatever I submitted, it was completely correct. And I think there was a confusion. They thought maybe different apartment, and they reached out after I submitted the appeal. And if you need any proofs that it was installed in July 4th, 5th, I can provide. Just let me know. And my question, like now they have to resubmit an application and for you to approve it, correct?
We can't do back and forth here, but I see that our legal counsel is reaching for maybe providing an answer here.
Yes, so it's rare when this happens, but the tenant does have the option to withdraw their appeal because nothing has been voted on tonight. So to explain to the parties, if that happens, it would just end things here. Actually, let me take that back. No, because they need to get their $44 back. So yes, the landlord would have to file the new compliance determination. The staff would have to review that. But if the tenant wants to submit a letter with that, it would probably go a long way to speeding it up, because until staff reviews that, the rent reduction technically remains in place. So that there is a process and a wait.
Great. Thank you very much. So any questions from our commissioner? Okay, Miss Garbia, we are going to put you back on mute, and we are going to close the public hearing portion at this time, seeing that there's no more questions, and we will turn to questions of staff at this time. I think Mr. Kirby's, you had one, Commissioner Kirby's?
And I know this is unorthodox, but is there any way that when in our motion tonight that we could grant the, because we're overturning we would be overturning the hearing examiner, and somehow solidify the fact that the two parties have agreed that as of July 4th that this is resolved, or does it have to go through the paperwork process?
It would. You could put in there in your reversal motion that you heard testimony and agree that the item has been replaced and all parties agree, but I don't think it would speed up the process. I think the tenant saying that, because the only way you could have some impact is if we did a de novo hearing and you sat in the place of the compliance determination, but you have to notice that, and you can't do that on the fly. So,
And that still wouldn't get us to...
No. Well, you could do a de novo hearing. No, it wouldn't. Yeah, there's nothing.
Okay. Well, maybe we just put in our, I would suggest maybe we just put in our motion, so at least there's that piece of evidence that maybe staff could look to when they see the compliance submission for the future. But that's all.
I'm looking at the dates on this, and the compliance determination was issued June 12th, which would have meant, had the appeal not been filed, that the rent would have gone back up on July 1st. Since this was installed on July 4th, essentially, and if the landlord filed for a compliance determination tomorrow, they're likely only going to be out 1 or 2 months worth of that $44 reduction, which seems like a paperwork filing fee almost. That's not what it is, but it does not seem punitive. It just seems like a matter of paperwork. So I think it's pretty straightforward. They seem amenable to me. Do we want to deliberate long on this? I think we're probably pretty close to a place for a motion, but I want to open the floor to any of my colleagues who do want to discuss this, or somebody just wants to make a motion. I've never done that before, but I think we're all kind of hearing the same thing.
The hearing, or the recommendation by staff, to remand, or I'm not, sorry, to overturn, adopt resolution RSC 25689, a resolution of the Rent Stabilization Commission of the City of West Hollywood, reversing the hearing examiner's decision as to application number D4375CD1.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, and I would ask Ms. Horton for a roll call on this.
Chair, may I jump in real
Oh,
quick?
please.
Sorry. Was there the addition of Commissioner Kirby's desire to put that additional language in there, or just leave as is?
I read it as is, so if that's in there, then I didn't understand that.
Your motion?
I would suggest that, I mean, if no one objects to it, yes, put it in there just so maybe staff can make the determination faster, but if they can't, they can't.
I'm a little reluctant to put in a finding of fact when we didn't have an evidentiary hearing this evening on it, and as much as it's probably a non-issue, I think I'm not really comfortable accepting new evidence that clearly happened after the examination, and I think it's a maybe short amount of time where there would be a rent reduction, and I think given what the tenant asked for, and then the submission of information related to another unit, that's okay for the landlord to have to be out for maybe a small duration of a rent reduction under these facts. So I'm in the camp of as is, not with an amendment tacking on a finding without an evidentiary hearing.
I'm with the vice chair. I would suggest that when Mr. Davis files his compliance determination, he could probably even just cite the YouTube video of this meeting this evening as evidence that as well that the tenant said they have an air conditioner. I'm not telling them what to do, but I think that us putting it in the resolution doesn't accomplish much more than other alternatives that wouldn't require us to amend a motion right now. That's where I'm at. Anyone else?
On the table right now is as is, so I don't know why we're debating it.
I think our legal counsel wanted clarification, that's all. Commissioner Goldman, do you have some more? No, I thought you were reaching for your button. Okay, then I will ask for the roll call now.
Commissioner Copeland? Aye. Commissioner Goldman?
Aye.
Commissioner Kerpies?
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty?
Aye.
Commissioner Topshin?
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory?
Aye.
Chair Bass?
Aye. This motion passes. If the parties have any further questions, you can reach the Rent Stabilization Division at 323-848-6450 by email at rsd@weo.org, or you may request an in-person appointment online at weo.org under the services menu. And if any, for the parties that were with us in Zoom, you will be now placed back into the waiting room. And if you'd like to watch the rest of the meeting, you may find your options to do so at weo.org/WehoTV. We'll now turn to item 9A on our agenda. Our first item of new business is the election of the chair and vice chair for this commission. Is the city clerk, Melissa Crowder, in attendance to facilitate the election process? I know the answer, but I'm asking anyway. Welcome. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Chair Bass, Vice Chair Rory, and Commissioners. I am here this evening. My name is Melissa Crowder. I am your city clerk. I'm here this evening to conduct the election of the chair and vice chair. Prior to calling nominations this evening, I would just like to go over a couple of things. They were included in the staff report that's in the packet, but just for members of the public so that they understand how we run this process. The term of the chair and the vice chair is for 1 year. No commissioner shall serve more than one consecutive term as chair. And in order to be nominated, the commissioner must have served on the commission for at least 6 months prior to the election. And I will state that everyone who is currently seated and appointed is eligible to serve as the vice chair or chair. And additionally, the chair shall not be eligible for nomination as the vice chair. I also want to go through the role of the chair and the vice chair just so everyone understands what is involved in being appointed. They call the commission meeting and conduct the order of business as set forth in the agenda. They adjust the agenda with the consensus of their colleagues. They ensure that we move, second, debate, and vote. They can rule motions in or out of order. They determine whether a speaker has exceeded their 2 minutes or 3 minutes, depending on what it is for the meeting. They rule on questions of parliamentary procedure, generally for Rosenberg's Rules of Order, which is what we use. And they sign all resolutions and documents for the commission. They call brief recesses, which we took one a little while ago. They appoint commissioners as liaisons to other commissions and advisory boards with the approval of their colleagues on the commission. And above all else, they maintain decorum so that the proceedings can move forward swiftly and we get through our agendas on time. And with that, I will open nominations for vice chair.
It would be my honor to nominate our vice chair, Frank Rory, to be our next chair.
Do I have a second?
I will accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great. And I'm just going to do a roll call vote just so we have it on the record, unless Brandy would like to run the roll call vote. She'll leave it to me. And I have to look at everyone's nameplate. Commissioner Goldman.
Aye.
Commissioner Copeland.
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty.
Aye.
Commissioner Kerpies.
Aye.
Commissioner Topchian.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory.
Aye.
Chair Bass.
Aye.
Your next chair is Vice Chair Rory. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. If I could just real briefly, I wanted to say thank you so much to our outgoing chair. that the last year, I think we've probably handled at least 20 appeals, probably more. We've packed it in. You've done an outstanding job getting through that, and getting into the other discussions that weren't appeal related. And I really view that as something I hope I can emulate. And I thought you ran the meetings really well. And one of the things that about this commission that I'm especially proud of is that we don't, as the two appeals this evening kind of showed, we don't always see things from the same way, but we always approach it with respect and decorum. And you really modeled that, and I hope that that continues for the next year. Like, that's a big goal of mine, to reflect what you did. So I wanted to say thank you to our outgoing chair as well.
Hear, hear.
I appreciate that. And continuing on with the evening then, I believe we now do the nomination process for the vice chair.
Yes. So if you would like to start that, you may.
Okay. So at this point, I will entertain any nominations for vice chair.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Goldman.
Wonderful.
I'll second it.
You accept
I accept,
the
yes.
nomination? Okay.
Perfect.
Any other? None? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call on that, please.
Perfect. And I will do it in alphabetical order and correctly this time. Commissioner Copeland.
Aye.
Commissioner Goldman.
Aye.
Commissioner Kerpes.
Aye.
Commissioner McCafferty.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rory.
Aye.
Chair Bass.
Aye.
Perfect. Your next vice chair is Commissioner Goldman. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And with that, that concludes the chair and vice chair election. Thank you for having me this evening.
Thank you for being here.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. So let's move on then to 9B, which is the appointment of liaisons. And we have a little cheat sheet that was on our desks before. I had something I was going to say about this just real briefly because I know from previous meetings there's been different viewpoints on this process. And I had thought about it ahead of time that maybe I could make a suggestion about how we approach this, and if everyone agrees, we can tweak it or proceed. I was going to kind of open this up to folks to look at the commission list, which we all have, and board list, and say if there's a particular commission that they have an affinity to or would like to be the liaison for. And my hope is that everyone on this dais would volunteer to do at least one, if not more, if you want. And my thought was, in terms of what that role would entertain, which I think has been kind of a sticking point in previous discussions. What does this mean? What do we do? How does this work? My thought was we could make it as a goal for the next 6 months. If you select to be a liaison for a commission or a board, you monitor the agendas for that commission or board for the next 6 months, and you try to find a meeting that seems to have a topic that's interest to you, or particularly that might have an overlap with rent, stabilization, or some sort of housing service issue. And then you would attend the meeting, and at the public comment section, introduce yourself as the liaison from this commission to that board or commission, and offer to facilitate any dialogue between the two. And then come back and report at commissioner comments at the next meeting here that you did that, and how that went, and any productivity that came from that introduction. And so that was my thought on how we could do this. I thought if folks agreed, maybe that's just a way to approach it, and then we'll see where we're at in 6 months, and if we want to shuffle it around, we can, or we can try to do a second meeting in 6 months. So I'll open it at that point if people like that idea, and then if people want to kind of go down the list and volunteer, and if we have more than one commissioner who's interested in a particular board or commission, I'm sure we can sort that out.
I think, Chair, what you suggested, I think it sounds great. It sounds reasonable, and I like that structure that you gave for these to attend these meetings. I personally, I have an interest in Public Safety Commission, the work, because generally, like everybody else, is concerned about the public safety, obviously in the city, and it's not that concerned in terms of like everything's bad, but I want to know what type of work they do and what their recommendations are, and if I would attend any of those meetings, I think the Public Safety Commission would be of my interest. Thank you.
I might not be alone in this, but I'll throw myself in for Planning Commission. I'm a planner by trade, so it makes sense for me.
Before we keep going down this, I'm interested if staff can help us understand this, because my concern is around the Brown Act. So when you go to these commission meetings, we can't represent the commission. We can't have a dialogue with them. We can talk during public comment, say I am the liaison, but all we can do is listen to what they, we can't speak on behalf of the commission. We can speak on behalf of ourselves as individuals. But if we're saying we're the liaison, then it creates that weird area of, are you speaking on behalf of the commission or not? Because I know the city clerk has advised us in trainings that we cannot, when we address the city council, stand up for the purpose and say, I'm a commissioner, because that kind of, we can't, it's not that we cannot, they advise against us doing that, because then it gives the impression that we are speaking on behalf of the commission. So all we can do is really listen to what they say at the meeting and then kind of report back. So I've always had a really hard time back from our public facility days when our chair and I served there together, of like what the liaisons do and what we can really do besides watch a meeting and come back and tell our colleagues what happened at that meeting.
I'm trying to see where the Brown Act issue comes in.
Maybe it's not that one, but it's that we can't speak on behalf of the commission unless we're given direction to speak on behalf of the commission.
Correct. You're given that power through being a liaison. I think all the other commissions and boards know what a liaison is and what it means. You're not taking any formal action, and you're not speaking on behalf of the commission. So it is a nuanced issue. There's like the new chair, congratulations, said, you have to kind of find ones that kind of, dovetail and have a connection between the Rent Stabilization Commission and the other commissioner board. But you are allowed to speak there and say, I'm coming from the Rent Stabilization Commission as the liaison. I think that makes clear that you haven't been voted to say what you're going to say. You're just sharing whatever you feel you want to share. But I think the vast majority of it is going there, showing a presence, and then coming back and saying, this is what I heard at that other meeting, because obviously we're all not able to go to all those meetings. So I think it is more the listening and bringing back and then having the discussions here about, over there we heard about that, maybe there's a problem that you guys can address here that you learned about somewhere else.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think, too, to add on that, any cross dialogue that might happen, which I hope would happen potentially, and this is the issue you're raising, could go through staff, and that could be a way around it. So initially, we're just kind of introducing, listening, and reporting back, but if something blossomed from that and there was a lively discussion and folks at their own commission comments said, we'd really like to get input from Rent on this issue, that could then all go through staff, not necessarily the liaison, so that we don't feel like we're having these communications and having to deal with any issues. We could just push it through staff, but to encourage the discussion if there was going to be one. So I was thinking of the Business License Commission. I don't know if anyone else has that particular interest, but I kind of would like to learn more about that, and was going to put myself down for that one, unless anybody else wanted one. I'm going to throw it to Commissioner Goldman, if you had a thought.
So it sounds like what we're doing is just listening into the meetings, right? And seeing if there's anything that relates to our commission. So if you're the liaison, are you committing to watching or attending every meeting? Is that essentially?
I was going to suggest what you could do is look at the agenda before the meeting and then pick something that you thought jumped out that had a rent focus on it. And then if you couldn't find anything, you could just pick whatever meeting and then do the introduction and report back. And even if the report back was, I just went, I introduced myself, and it was fine, that would be at least a step forward.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I just wanted clarification. I'm interested in the Transportation and Mobility Commission.
Great. Commissioner Copeland, did you have one that jumped out to you?
Chair, Historic Preservation Commission, if no one else has their heart set on that, would be something I would be interested in.
Okay. And last but not least, Commissioner Kerpes.
I don't disagree with anything that's been said about the role of the liaisons or anything, but for a variety of reasons, one, time constraints, I'm not going to sign up for any, but I, as a member of the commission, see each of our roles as always being a representative of the commission out in public, and not to say that, like I said, I don't think I've gone to any other meetings or even a council meeting in the last 6 months other than ours. So it's not like I'm going to be showing up at these meetings, but when I do, or if I were to show up at a meeting, and the things that I would talk about during public comment, if appropriate, depending on the subject matter. If I was there for my own personal reasons, I wouldn't. But if I were just there observing, I would talk about, and if we had an event coming up, or if we had recently released the adjustment on the rents, or if we had made the announcement about the interest rates, those are the types of things that I would, more like telling about what the policy is, not saying what the commission is actually doing, or telling them what the commission thinks or anything like that, just telling them what the current rules are. So I won't be signing up for one, but it's not that I won't be participating, although don't expect me to be at many. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay, so you're declining at this time, but you will participate and let us know if you do attend any meetings?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. I would like to, I appreciate the explanation, because that's the first time I have some sort of idea of what they actually do, and that's even having liaisons appear before other commissions I've served on. Looking at my schedule and what everyone else has signed up for, there's literally only one that remains that has not been spoken for that works with my schedule. Going to law school this fall and have night clam classes, so Human Services is the only one that would work for me, if that hasn't been asked yet.
No, I can put you down for that.
Thank you.
Okay. Do I need to craft a motion on this to approve the liaisons?
You could.
Okay. So I'm going to move, pursuant to item 9B, that the following list of appointments be made as liaisons to other commissions and advisory boards. Commissioner Rory will take Business and License Commission. Commissioner Copeland will take Historic Preservation Commission. Commissioner Bass will take Human Services Commission. Commissioner McCafferty will take Planning Commission. Commissioner Topchian will take Public Safety Commission. And Vice Chair Goldman will take Transportation and Mobility Commission. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, and we'll just do a voice vote on this one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So that motion carries. And we can move on then to item 9C, which is the ad hoc committee on the valuation guidelines. And I know that we have a report from staff on this. Ms. Avalos.
Yes. Chair Rory, congratulations. Vice Chair Goldman. Under the rent stabilization ordinance, tenants may file rent adjustment applications if a landlord fails to perform required maintenance or reduces eliminates housing services without a rent decrease. These applications are reviewed by a hearing examiner who assesses whether minimum maintenance standards were met or if housing services have been substantially reduced. If violations are found, the examiner determines an appropriate rent reduction based on factors such as tenant impact, health and safety, and market value of the lost service. To guide these decisions, staff developed valuation guides in 2001 that were later revised in 2014 and again reviewed in 2021 by the Rent Stabilization Commission to assist in quantifying rent decreases. These guidelines are advisory and case-specific. On April 10th, 2025, the Rent Stabilization Commission voted to consider forming a temporary ad hoc committee to review and recommend updates to the valuation guidelines. Tonight, staff recommends the following to the Commission. Number one, decide whether or not to form the committee. If it's decided to form the committee, to appoint up to 3 members. Number 3 is to define the ad hoc committee's purpose and timeline. And number 4, to dissolve the committee after it reports back unless further work is needed. That's my report.
Okay, great. So I'll just tackle those in order, because I think the threshold issue for discussion for the commission is whether or not to form. I'm seeing from a previous history of commissioner comments and appeals, especially in the last year, that it would be a good idea to form a committee and an ad hoc committee. And it's been a while since these guidelines have been looked at, so I think we're due for that. And unless folks want to discuss that further, we could probably say let's move forward with this. Okay, I'm seeing nods. Up to 3, I think that makes sense. We can then, let's just, up to 3 makes sense, right? And then purpose and timeline, is that something that we're discussing tonight, or would that, okay, that's some purpose and timeline tonight. So that one, I'll definitely look for folks to chime in here. It seems like reviewing these guidelines and coming back to this commission with suggestions of any changes to the existing guidelines would be a start of a purpose. I would think on timeline, 6 months. I mean, I don't think we want this going on for a whole year. It's July, it's towards the end of the year. We could be flexible on that, but it'd be nice to get the review, get the recommendations, come back to this commission, discuss it further, and then if there's any recommendations that would be made, like formally to adopt those changes, we would have the ability to do that within this calendar year. And that would be my thought on timing.
I was going to say 6 months I was going to suggest 6 months also. I think it's a kind of a reasonable time frame that will allow the members to really go through the current regulations, the guidelines, and to look for other the regulations on similar guidelines in other jurisdictions. That's obviously the staff, the city's department will provide assistance in that. But that's a really, I think that's a huge kind of a area for the ad hoc committee to look into. So 6 months, I think it's reasonable, no less for sure. And I was going to suggest 6 months.
I noticed that an increase to the guidelines is on our agenda on August 14th. So I wanted to check with staff. Like, are there any staff or statutory deadlines associated with these guidelines that we need to be meeting?
No, because it's an ad hoc committee, then you guys establish those guidelines.
Okay. Then yeah, 6 months makes sense.
Yeah. I think her question was more about its effect on once, let's say we come back with recommendations, the commission approves them, implementation and lining it up. I mean, weren't you going to talk about the lining it up with the current, here goes my microphone, the current process we currently have. So my kind of building on that, my question, I don't know where I went. My question building on that is, this, because it's regulations, it doesn't have to go to council, right, if we were to make changes. So working back from like a date, like, I guess we're just increasing the dollar amounts at the next, or at that July meeting, or that meeting, that August meeting, right? We're just announcing the annual increase.
I believe the August meeting is to start introducing some of the recommendations that the ad hoc committee would want to propose. It is on our look ahead, right?
That seems a little strong.
Yeah.
I think that's just for the annual general
I
adjustment.
think so.
Not the committee
That would be my
itself.
request to staff if there is any ambiguity, that the ad hoc, if it's formed, that it be given 6 months, and then we can come back. Here's a suggestion: before next August, when we do the next annual adjustment, we can roll in any revisions to the guidelines if we can't get to it sooner than next August.
I think we, last time we did this, it only took a few months, but we had about 6 meetings with staff by Zoom, but it definitely wasn't a year, it was a matter of a few months.
It was maybe 3 months or so.
Yeah,
But
so 6 is certainly not unreasonable to go from 3 to 6, but it certainly wouldn't take a year to
Chair,
do that.
do you mind if I explain a little bit of procedural info on this?
Please.
Okay, so ad hocs, while you're discussing time, have to be temporary in time legally.
Right.
So 3 months, 6 months, those are all good. The impact on the increases in the valuation guidelines, August 14th, they don't have much of an impact on this. The valuation guidelines are going to be increased August 14th, and we'll discuss those at that time. Whatever is decided, if the ad hoc committee says all of these need a 10% increase, let's say that for easy purposes, and they decide that in December, because they're your regulations, you can craft how that they will interplay with the next AGA increase. You could say there is going to be no AGA increase next time because we're doing this in March. You know, there's a lot of ways to do it, so I wouldn't worry too much about how the AGA plays there. The other thing is whatever time frame you put on this, 3 months, 6 months, whatever the case may be, the ad hoc committee can come back and report and say, hey, we need a little bit more time, and so you can always extend it or shorten it. You know, if you get it done in 3, say, hey, I'm back, and go from there.
My thinking on this was, let's make 6 months as the deadline for initial recommendations, and then if there's further work for the ad hoc to do. And the other thing I was going to clarify too is that to the extent the ad hoc decides there needs to be a decrease, I don't know when or how, that's also on the table. It's not just an increase, it's looking at these guidelines and seeing if there's adjustments either way would be the purview.
I have a question for staff, and that is, we're talking about what works for us, but a lot of this work requires staff support. So does staff have a recommendation on what they can provide and their workload that we are unaware of, and what they can support this ad hoc committee with? So a timeline suggested by you based on what you can support us with.
We did, excuse me, Chair, we did before, there were 3 of us, and we met with the housing manager as well as one of the staff members in rent, and we all met together, and so they could then fill us in on anything if we were off base, or because we're talking about hopefully adding specificity to directions, adding items to the list, adjusting any prices so that before it was a matter of we were not on board with what the other rent-regulated cities were doing as far as guidelines. So some of those were increased and there were items added to the list, but staff was also, we met with them via Zoom back then, but you know, this was 2021. So Commissioner Topchin was on that as well, and so we were all working together on it, and it really would take about a few months, I think.
Yeah, it took a few months, but we would come up with some recommendations, suggestions based on our research and based on what the commission discussed and the commission recommended. So ad hoc committee members recommended those things to staff, and staff needed time, obviously, to do their research. So they would
Right.
just reach out to different rent control jurisdictions. They would just, compile a file with all the recommendations. Like in Berkeley, they do it this way. In LA, they do it this way. So it was just a lot of work, and I think staff also would appreciate that, more time,
More
obviously,
time,
for
yeah,
them.
correct.
So my question remains, like your workload, what?
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Bass. I do appreciate you guys taking that into account. As you already know, we have the manager position that's I'm currently working as an acting manager, so that has to be filled. We have 2 staff attorneys and a mediator position that also have to be filled. And we have some staff members that may be going through promotion. So there's going to be some challenges as far as what type of support you're going to have from staff. So the more time we have to get this done, the better for us, so that we can then go ahead and do whatever we need to do to assist you guys. And as Commissioner Copeland said, it was the manager, and I'm already looking into another info coordinator that can assist with this. But if you guys give us more time, then we would be able to help you out while all the challenges that we're going through with the staff issues going on right now.
Thank you. That's enlightening for me. So I like the 6 month as well.
I would like to make sure that we're not doing this to create more work for staff, that the people who serve on this ad hoc committee can do research. They can call other cities and find out what they do. So hopefully the people who participate in this will take on that responsibility, that staff is there to assist, but it's more to document and things like that, and to help them form the recommendations for the commission. I really don't see this, and I hope it doesn't turn into a work project. I know it's going to take some time for staff. I don't want to diminish that, but I just don't want to see this as being a staff thing. I mean, staff could do this if they wanted to, but they don't right now. They can't.
Commissioner Kirby's is exactly correct. That's actually what happened before. Was we looked into what other rent-regulated cities were doing as far as prices, and maybe things we got together and say, well, what do we think is missing on the list? Like, right now, as we go through these appeals and there are things missing, I've been making notes. So who is ever on the commission, if it's not me, although I'd love to do it, they have we have an idea of, okay, what's missing. So we did research and compile and give it to the housing manager, who also passed it to, at the time, it was Anwar, to verify some things and see where we were. So the bulk of the work was done by the people on the committee as far as the research, and then staff would tell us, you can do this, or you can't do this, or where we stand as far as the RSO or the municipal code and things like that. So you're correct, absolutely, in that the bulk of research and ideas and things was, the onus of that is on the committee members. You're correct.
Okay. What I'd like to suggest then at this point is doing a motion on the points we've talked about, and if there's consensus, then we'll do the appointments, and then we can move on from there, if that works.
I move that we approve this ad hoc committee with a initial 6 month time frame, and that we get an initial report within 6 months based on the direction that's laid out in the staff report.
Can I ask that they at least give us an update 3 months in? So I think 6 months is just a long window.
Why don't we ask for an initial report in 3 months and a final report in 6 months? And that initial report might make us change that, of course. But to make my motion clear, a 6 month duration with an initial report in 3 months.
Sounds good.
That'll be my motion.
Okay, I'll second that. We'll do a voice vote on this one. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so that motion carries. And now we get to fill the 3 spots. And this one, I'm going to throw it open, but I was going to just say that I think there's some folks on this who have prior experience who might make sense if they're interested in serving again. And I was going to look at Commissioner Copeland and Commissioner Topshian.
I would love to.
I don't want to throw you up there, but if you also Commissioner Kirpies, I feel like you have a tremendous depth in this area, but that was suggestions. I'll let people volunteer themselves.
I would absolutely volunteer. Thank you for bringing that up.
That's great. That I'm really happy to hear that Commissioner Copeland will participate with her expertise in these questions. But I would definitely would like to see some newer members of the commission to maybe participate. I will definitely be active during the discussions on the commission, and recommend things, based on my experience dealing with these things, but due to my schedule, I won't be able to, unfortunately,
That's totally
participate.
fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Kirby's, I sense from your body language that you
Yeah.
had a similar comment. No hard feelings. And you can chime in then when we report back. I would love the full extent of your experience and knowledge on that issue. So,
For years now, Commissioner Copeland and I have talked about the opportunity to serve on a commission together, and we now have that opportunity. I'm excited about that, but I would love to serve on a committee with her. But if my colleagues would like to do it, I don't feel so strongly that I'm willing to do it, but I'm turning to Commissioner McCafferty and Commissioner Goldman if they would prefer it.
I'm just concerned with having a toddler and not time constraints, so I don't want to. What kind of, those that have done it before, because I would love to learn from your knowledge and expertise, what kind of time commitment do you think we're looking at?
Commissioner Topchin can correct me if I'm wrong, but we had about, what, was it 8 or meetings or so over a few months? And they were generally an hour or two each, and this was over Zoom, so I suppose it could be Microsoft Teams or whatever. But I think it was either 8 or 10 meetings. It was.
Yeah, it was 8 or 10 meetings, but in between there were, materials that the staff would send us for emails, or there was like a Google Share documents that we had to review. Then we would also brainstorm things, and we would just have to do our own research to go to different cities' websites or ordinances, look for the information or something. That, there's some work, but it's not like on a daily basis. Yeah.
If it's video meetings, that would be a lot more doable than in person, for sure.
I would think these would have to be at least accessible via Zoom. That would be my strong recommendation. Commissioner McCafferty, what are your thoughts?
I can step up if needed. However, I'm not super eager.
I'm slightly more eager, so if that's the place, I'm willing to do it.
Okay.
Yes.
No, I mean, we have folks who are doing it. I think who want to do it, we're being deferential to each other right now. So,
go ahead.
If it's okay, Commissioner McCafferty and Vice Chair Goldman, I'd like to nominate you guys to be on the committee with Commissioner Copeland. That would be my suggestion at this point, unless.
I was slightly more eager than Commissioner McCafferty, but if you want it, then please take it.
Just say how you feel. If you don't want to do it, then that's okay. Or if the timing isn't right for you now, it's probably a better way.
I'll give it to Commissioner Bass.
Okay. And are you okay with your schedule coming up, sir?
I will make the time for this, yes.
You sure?
I might skip the Human Services Commission meeting, because this would be more of a priority to me. But I think you already all knew that. So.
Okay. And how about this? I'm going to suggest that I can be a backup in the event that any of the 3 nominated decide it's too much, and I can be the extra juror, who can fill in. So the alternate.
That would be a problem.
Yeah, I think last.
Well, no, I can't. I wouldn't sit there. But in the event either of the 3 commissioners decide it's too much for them, I will happily be able to step in at that point, or we can talk about it. But
If I were to resign from the committee, then you would point yourself to that vacancy, basically, right?
I think that's
kind of
would
how I'm
do.
hearing what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay. So it wouldn't be, because on the planning commission we had alternates on the design review committee, and it turned into a Brown. That actually was a Brown Act. Lauren Langer told me, because
So it's
somebody might,
informal,
yeah.
Understanding that if any of the three appointed weren't able to serve, they could let me know, and I'll appoint myself at that point if they had to resign. Is that okay? And just so everyone's clear on that, that'll be our plan. Okay, that'll be the idea. Does that work? Okay. All right, so I'll make the motion that the three members of the ad hoc subcommittee on the valuation guidelines at this point would be Commissioner Copeland, Vice Chair Goldman, and Commissioner Bass. And if I have a second, we can voice vote.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Okay, great. So that's wonderful. I think this is going to be something we can definitely look forward to this fall, and I'm really excited to hear what the suggestions are from that committee. Okay, so we can close the new and unfinished business part of the meeting and move on to items from staff. Any upcoming items that may be of interest or any other news?
Yes, so I got a message from one of our staff members, Michelle Montenegro. She's an associate planner with Long Range Planning. This is a message to the commissioners. Good afternoon, commissioners. Thank you once again for the valuable feedback that was received at the May 8th Rent Stabilization Commission meeting, where the zoning improvement program for housing was presented to share information and seek initial input on its policy direction. The purpose of the zoning improvement program for housing, otherwise known as ZIP, is to reduce barriers to housing and create diverse housing opportunities that serve the diverse population that exists in the city. As we move forward in our technical analysis phase and begin to construct potential alternatives around increasing housing capacity and restructuring our incentive programs, we will be launching a ZIP advisory group as a tool to inform potential policy recommendations. The ZIP advisory group will be held virtually 2 to 3 times through the rest of the year, when the first virtual meeting is scheduled for August 6th from 12 to 1. Those interested in participating will be asked to acknowledge that they can attend the first meeting. If interested, we ask that you complete a questionnaire and submit it to Michelle. We're seeking as diverse perspectives as possible. Therefore, we will ask that only one individual from each commission or board we reach out to participate. Thank you in advance for your consideration. So they're basically asking for one member of this commission to participate as a ZIP in the ZIP advisory group, and this is a formal invitation. So if you guys would like to decide at this point who can participate, then I could let Michelle know and give her your name, and then she will send you that questionnaire directly.
Oh, would you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, okay, here, what's their goal is what, like diverse opinion? I worry that my opinion might not be diverse because I'm just like a city planner. You know what I mean? It might be good to get enough. I think you should do it because you're not a planner. Does that make sense?
I think a planner with a rent stabilization commission hat on is also a very specific perspective.
True.
You didn't ask my opinion, but I'm offering it.
Yeah, I can do it. Okay, I can do it.
Great. I'll give Commissioner McCafferty, I'll give her your name.
That's great.
Yeah, I'll get a questionnaire.
That's all from staff.
Okay, wonderful. Well, good. That was great. Item 11 is public comment. I'm not seeing any. Okay, thank you. And then item 12 is items from commissioners.
Let me pull it up. This weekend for the public, Saturday, there's a community brainstorm for the Plummer Park Comprehensive Improvement Plan. It is at Plummer Park, Saturday, July 12th, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Fiesta Hall. So just wanted to get the word out on that one.
I have a few things here. A couple things for staff. We've heard it multiple times over the last couple of years and once tonight about mail just not being delivered. And I'm interested in knowing, have we ever considered the notifications coming in a way, being sent to parties in a way that we can confirm the receipt, whether it be certified mail or something like that. And I recognize that's an additional cost, and so that's beyond the purview of this commission to just direct that sort of thing. But I'm really interested in, obviously, we are all interested in making sure everyone who's a party at any one of these gets word. I mean, everybody's on the same page there. But how do we make sure that people actually get these notices? Because I mean, it just happens too often to know that it's just a fluke and one person's lying to us or misleading us or, you know, this sort of thing. It just happens a lot.
Yeah, we send it regular mail and certified mail. So it's sent both ways.
Okay.
All
So
the notices.
so is there a way that we could identify that it was actually delivered on a certain day in for future cases? Is that something could just be noted so that we have some sort of record of you know, the USPS reports that it was delivered on such and such date?
We could definitely include that in the appeals report.
Thank you. The next one, and I mean, if that needs to be a further discussion, by all means, but since it came up tonight and we've seen it a dozen times probably in the 2.5 years I've been here, I was interested in that. The other one is, there's a very specific situation, and we saw it again tonight, and I wasn't anticipating it until we heard the public comment, but I still had it in my notes, so it's interesting, where things get resolved before they get to a particular stage. The one I'm thinking about is the situation where a tenant will ask their landlord to do something and like, paint my unit, paint my unit, paint my unit, paint my unit, and they do this for a long period of time. And then they say, you know, I'm tired of asking my landlord. It's been way past the 30 days. I'm going to file for a hearing. Well, the landlord now gets a letter from the city and they go, oh, shoot, now they're serious about this. So they go paint the unit. Well, the tenant has now paid a $25 fee and has this entire record that they filed saying, I've been asking this for a long period of time. And they filed for this. They go to the hearing and the hearing examiner's like, well, it's complied with now. Well, the tenant's out the $25. They shouldn't have to pay $25 to get their landlord to do this work. And the evidence, I'm using a very hypothetical situation, not using any one we've heard, but the evidence is clear before the hearing examiner. This was not complied to until after the hearing examiner was petition was filed, whatever that's called. So is there a way that a hearing examiner could find, or would we need to look at regulations or something like this, that in that specific scenario, and we've seen a couple of those, that the hearing examiner could at least find that they get their $25 back, even though that's now been complied with. And I would suggest that the hearing examiner could say, had this not been complied with between the time the hearings was filed for and the time we had the hearing, I would have found for this. Therefore, at least for this 1 month, they get that reduction, and then it's over. Like, there seems to be like a tenant shouldn't have to go through all this process, and then the landlord doesn't pay attention to them until the city actually gets involved. It's a really gray area, and it doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened a few times.
So in the past, what would happen is the hearing decision would give an effective date 30 days after the hearing. Now the effective date is when the application was submitted. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Kellen, is that they would at least benefit 1 month's worth of a rent reduction and get that $25 back. Oh. If in fact, by the time the hearing occurs, everything is resolved.
So it's basically I find in this scenario, I find for the tenant, but the compliance determination essentially happens at the exact same time.
Right, that's
that
correct.
happened? Okay, then thank you. You solved the problem before I asked it. That's always the best thing. So those are the two things I had. for staff, but the next thing I wanted to say is just really hearty congratulations, Chair Rory. I called you all three titles. Chair Rory, you and I have had the opportunity to serve together now on 2 commissions. Both of us now have had the opportunity to serve with each other as the chair of both of those commissions, and I am just really honored to have that opportunity. And your words were very kind earlier, and having served with you as on 2 commissions now, I'm very excited for this year ahead, and I know you're going to be a great chair. Commissioner Goldman, welcome to commission leadership, and I know that you will do a great job as well. And just to my colleagues, including those former Chair Wright and Vice Chair Moore and Commissioner Paris, who served with us since I've been here, and I just am, and to all of you, of course, I am just really honored to have had the opportunity to serve as your chair for the last year. And it's been a pleasure, and I'm very excited to just be a commissioner now and not have to worry about the logistics of the meeting. And I just thank you for that opportunity. And I also want to thank the council as a whole for appointing me at large, and then specifically Councilmember Hang for giving me the opportunity to serve a second term. So just as I'm leaving the chair's position, I wanted to make sure I get all my thanks out, because I really loved the opportunity to serve the city and have enjoyed being the chair of this commission. So thank you. That's all I have for tonight.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. A quick question for the legal counsel, Mr. Martz. For more determination cases and for rent decrease cases, is it possible to add in the first paragraph of the staff report to include the current rent that the tenant pays for the unit? It's kind of I'm more of a visual person. It's not that it's going to influence my decision. It's just I'm always curious what's the rent, because I sometimes have a hard time to look for it.
We can absolutely do that, so long as you send me an email so I remember to do that.
Okay, all right. So
Thank
that's
you.
not a problem. Thank you so much. Thank you. And of course, my congratulations with our new chair, Chair Rory, and Vice Chair Goldman. I'm very excited and very pleased, obviously, to serve with you for the next year, and good luck to you. Thank you, former Chair Bas. You've done an outstanding job chairing the meetings. It was absolutely incredible, and I really liked the way that you presented yourself, the issues, and you stick with the agenda, and you move forward quickly, and everything was, I think it was perfect. So you've done a great job. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Chair. Congratulations to our new chair and vice chair. I look forward to working with you very much. And thank you, Commissioner Bass. We finally got to serve on a commission together, and you did a wonderful job in a leadership role and made the welcome back very easy. And so thank you so much for your service, and all of my fellow commissioners for your service to the community. One thing I did want to mention, if that's okay, what Commissioner Bass brought up about the timeline, as well as Ms. Aviles mentioned. It used to be that one of the things that we did discuss also and were able to bring a change about with this subcommittee was that it used to be when you'd go for months and months, missing a service, and then you file for a MAR hearing, and then the reduction wouldn't go into effect until after the determination. So that's another month or two or more. That's what happened. So we were able to change that back to when the application was filed. But I believe there was one locality that maybe Commissioner Topchin can correct me if I'm wrong, but they actually started the clock running after that 30-day notification to the landlord was sent. Once you notified the landlord and they had 30 days, then there was a hearing that would go back to that 30-day notice. So I don't know if that's something we've ever addressed here or not, but that did come up. As you mentioned, sometimes it's a very long time, even if we're backed up and the hearing is, they do get it from the filing date, but as you said, sometimes it does go on for quite a long period of time before there's any relief. So thank all of you once again, and thanks staff for your patience and your work, and I know you're overloaded right now, so we appreciate you. Thank you. That's it for me, Chair.
Vice Chair.
So I want to thank the outgoing chair, Chair Bass. It has been a pleasure under your leadership, and I have also enjoyed sitting next to you and being able to watch, how you conduct everything. And as a new commissioner, that's been really helpful and really great. And I also really appreciate you giving me all those bathroom breaks, I have to say. So Chair Rory, I will also appreciate that from you. And I'm really looking forward to serving in leadership with you, and thank you to all of my colleagues for the nomination.
You should start a new policy in your chair. Iron fist, no restroom breaks. Congratulations to the new chair and vice chair. And I agree with Agassi. Your chairmanship over the last year, I would say, is, I hate to say anything's perfect, but near perfection. I mean, I thought that you did a really good job from day one all the way through the entire year. I appreciated the times when you reached out and asked for my thoughts on different things. And I think you set an example of what a chair should be. So congratulations for a year well done, and now you can relax and talk as much as you want during the council meet or during the commission meetings.
Yeah, big shoes to fill. And so I'm looking forward to taking that on, and I'm really looking forward to working with Vice Chair. It was really easy to be your Vice Chair, so I hope it's somewhat easy to be mine. And I look forward to working with everyone this year ahead. I appreciate tonight people stepping up for the liaisons and those roles, and I'm hoping that we can continue this kind of collaborative spirit we all have. I did have one request for staff. If it's possible at a future meeting or on some sort of semi-regular basis to get stats on evictions that have transpired over whatever period of time is easy for you guys to calculate, but it's kind of nice to know as of such and such time period, there were, X amount of for-cause evictions and Y amount of non-for-cause. That's obviously germane, and I think that's good for this commission to keep an eye on. So I was gonna make a request for that to return when you guys are able to weave that in. And good luck to the ad hoc committee, and we look forward to that report as well in 3 months, the status report. And I think that's it for tonight, unless folks have anything else they want to say. I'm hearing we can get in by 9. So with that, I will adjourn this meeting to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Rent Stabilization Commission to be held on July 24th, 2025 in West Hollywood Park, Public Meeting Room, Council Chambers. Thank you all.
I really love a picture of this commission.